Good morning. This is a brief tutorial on your hotbed configuration for the System 30M and the engine. So we use an aluminum circuit board that has traces that were designed and specifically made to a tolerance so that as we run 10 amps at 12 volts through it, we get a nice increase in temperature. It gets us to about 85 degrees C in normal ambient conditions. There are two thermistors that are built into this. Only one is being used. This is one. There's a location for a second one. And there is also an LED that indicates that there's DC voltage being applied to the resistive pattern. And you can see the red LED here. So when your hotbed is turned on, that red LED is shining. That's a quick fit way to look at it. Now, if you're talking to your hotbed controller, you will see that there are a series of lights here, and you can refer to the user manual on what the lights mean, but I'm going to go through it real briefly. There is a blue light that blinks on the far left hand side. It would be labeled D1 for diode 1, LED 1. That one is blue and it blinks at about 1 time a second. That's the heartbeat. When that's blinking, it means that the microcontroller is alive and running his software. If you do not have a blue blinking light, you either have no voltage or the programming has been messed up, which I can't remember ever happening, but that's what would explain it. The next two lights talk about the CAN traffic. That's the CAN bus that talks to the motion CPU. That's transmit and receive. These should be blinking periodically, every couple times a second, maybe once a second after initially turning on. And that indicates that there is communication between this microcontroller and the host motion controller. Alright, the next light, light number 4, is the fault LED. This only comes on when we have a fault of some kind. Illegal commands, something's over temperature, there are numerous different faults. So when a fault occurs, it will transmit to the motion controller, and that will transmit to Repetrel, which will display it under the viewing screen, the 3D view, far left hand screen. If you look at the bottom, there's a little scroll window that shows constant information. Alright, so on the next 4 LEDs, you will have the hotbed heater, the fan, and if there were a motor, because there's also actually a potential for having a motor on here, and that motor would be for a rotary scanning platform. That would be pulse and direction. So that's what the LEDs are for. Alright, so let's talk about what do you do when your hotbed isn't working. Alright, so that's a big word, isn't working. Well, that means that it decided not to get out of bed, decided that some item of it's not working, it only gets to 50 degrees centigrade. There are lots of different things. So we're going to be more specific. Let's talk about the communication first, because if you're not talking to this board, you will not be happy and you will not get what you want. When this is properly registered, it will show up on the Repetrel screen, and it will turn green and allow you to have buttons to turn on and off the hotbed. If you do not get that, then you will have a communications problem, and we have to solve that first, because you're not going to get heat if I can't give it the command to turn on the heat. Okay, so looking for the traffic between these two LEDs. If that's not happening, then your cable that goes, then there are 2 of them, from this hotbed board, interface board, goes up underneath the spine. If those cables are not seated correctly, that can cause a problem. That would be located right here on your spine if you were looking at your system. So that's what these 2 connections points to. Alright, now if you are communicating, you'll be able to turn on and off the symbol on the Repetrel screen. That's on the PC side. Now what you want to do is see if these LEDs are responding or not. Actually, even before that, you want to see if your temperature is reading correctly. If your temperature is not reading, then the connection between this RTD is not being made all the way through to this board. That could be due to a wire that has been pulled out. It could be due to a bad faulty connection right here. You want to check that. And you can check it easily by just measuring the resistance across these 2 wires which if you read the label, it will say ground and RTD1, which is actually on this side here. So it'll say RTD1. So you want to measure between ground and RTD1, and I'm going to do that right now while it's hooked up, just so you can see what I'm measuring and what you can expect. First I had to get a voltmeter, which in this case is an ohm meter. Alright, and whenever using an ohm meter, you always touch the leads together first to make sure we have good continuity, because I can't tell you how many times I have screwed that up. And I'm actually going to measure across the RTD right now. It's room temperature, so it's 26, 27 degrees. And what are we looking at here? We are looking at a reading of about 8.3 k ohms. And now, if I come all the way over here, I'm going to unplug this. So now it's completely removed from the circuit, because there is some bias being introduced by that. I'm going to come back and measure again. That's 49K. Okay. And that's what I would expect. That's about right. It's a 50K ohm at room at 0 degrees C. So 40, 49, 48. There you can see. And if I warm it up, I'm going to hit it with a little heat here from my body. You should start to see it. Well, that would be good if I. There. See, it's dropped already to 43. So it's measuring my body temperature. Took away my finger, now it's warming right up again. You can see the resistance is responding nicely to the room versus my body. Okay, that said, that's really proving that that connection is being made, because the resistance changes nicely. With it plugged in, I expected 8.3K, and that is what I got. So this is a quick measurement you can make, and you can make it without uninstalling anything. That'll tell you if your RTD is the correct RTD and if it's plugged in. Now, if you have the correct RTD reading and you are not reading correctly, i.e. the temperature is like minus 400 or 2000 degrees, you probably have got the wrong firmware in here. The firmware for this is specifically for the Hotbed, and you can get that at www.hyrel3d.net. And there it will show you the correct firmware for the Hotbed controller. Anyway, that's the theory of operation. I'm going to go through the components on this board just so you can see real quick what they do, and then we'll be done. Alright, this here is a fuse, and that's set so catastrophic fires don't happen. This is a high side switch, so yes, we use a very safe, current limited, and we switch the VCC, not to ground. We've had some people in the past say usually just put a single MOSFET on, it's 50 cents. Well, this is a $2 or $3 part, but it switches on the high side, which keeps it lower, and it also measures the current and current limits, so that means we don't start fires. So we prefer not to start fires. Anyway, a couple capacitors, and then the rest is just your connectors, a few illumination LEDs for us, and of course this is where your X-axis home sensor would be also integrated into it. That's it. So, thank you very much. I hope this helps you get your debugging done. Quick tutorial on how your Hotbed controller will work. So we were talking about, in this particular one, we're showing that it's reading 80 degrees centigrade, and that would be correct. I feel it, it's hot. It's currently programmed for 90, now I've turned it off. This is a small custom bed, and it maxes out at 80s. I'm going to break the connection to it so you can see that it's gone away from us. There, it lost communications, and there, you see how it went gray on here? And so that just tells you you're not talking to the Hotbed controller. So you can try and click the buttons, nothing will happen. The information is not correct, that's why it's grayed out and frozen. And now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to plug back in the Hotbed controller so that we can see it come to life and register itself. There. And now it's back up, and now it's correctly reading. Okay, so we just wanted you to see that, and we wanted to make sure that this is the right software firmware for you. Now this particular firmware I'm going to read is actually 17K. That software is for our Platinum RTD hotbeds, not for the 50K ohm hotbeds. Again, go to Hyrel3D.net for the wiki, and you will find the correct, most recent firmware version for your standard hotbed with a 50K ohm resistor. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show you. So now you can go and diagnose further. Thank you very much.